coming all the way from India, and being in Bay Area is kind of overwhelming, but I'll try to do my best and make it worth your while. This is what we're going to talk about today: space economy, in general, Artemis. What is the Artemis project? It's a very flagship project by NASA, and the aim of Artemis is to get humans to moon, not just to visit but to stay there. So what it takes to go to the moon. So here is a small comparison I would like to make between space and AI. AI is an enabler. It helps you to process information faster. Space is like terra firma. So you are walking on ground, then you go into water, you swim in water, and then you go in air, you behave differently. But the principles more or less remain the same. Only the amount of information and the time you have to make a decision can vary very, very significantly. And that's how AI comes into picture. So this is what we're going to talk about, touch base on a couple of these things. Space economy currently is $500 billion today. I think maybe 10 years ago it would not have been even 1/10 of it. But in the next 5 years, another $500 billion is going to be added to this $500 billion. That is what should make every one of you excited. So you can see some stats on how AI in space is growing by 23%. There are companies like Leo Labs. The job of Leo Labs is to tell the satellite launchers what is the possibility of your satellite being hit by this size or maybe by this size of a space debris flying at you at 17,000 kilometers per hour and make it non-usable. That's what Leo Lab does. It's a purely AI company. They make a lot of money out of that. So space debris management, you can see that already there are 130 million pieces of debris floating in the low Earth orbit, which is between 400 to 600 kilometers above Earth's above Earth's surface. So you can sometimes have a call, sometimes somebody can ring a bell in your house, sometimes it can just be wind, but you go out to sea. Only in the case of space, if you have a false call, even to generate a false call, you have installed so much of infrastructure, but if it's a false call, you have to do maneuvers in your satellite, and those maneuvers cost very precious fuel. For example, the Starlink satellite has a fuel for only 350 maneuvers in space. If they get false call, and if that 350 is probably instead of the 5 years of life, if it's run out in 2 years, then the satellite can't save itself. So that's a very, very critical case of what AI can do when they are cancelling out. And if it's cancelling out the 97% of false call, it's somewhere 95% accuracy and okay. So there's somewhere 97% in third, you can see. So very expensive piece of equipment which are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, which can't be repaired as of now. You can repair your cars, you can repair your aeroplanes, but you can't repair the satellites. They are at the mercy of certain decisions made, and how AI can change the nature of those decisions, save hundreds of millions of equipment. That enterprise is going to be hundreds of millions worth, because it's going to save sort of so many companies from getting into losses. Now we can see the number of launches 10 years ago. Today SpaceX is capable of having a Falcon 9X rocket ready in 3 days time. It's like automotive level of production. Few years ago it would have taken a year to make one whole rocket. Now it's being done in matter of days. How it is being done? thanks to all of you from AI, thanks to 3D printing, because it's like a match made in heaven, where you can print rocket parts, design them, iterate them very, very fast instead of months. We have a slide later which is called from months to minutes. So it's all, yeah. The cost of launch into low Earth orbit 6 years ago was $12,500 per kilogram. So if you're launching a 10 kilogram payload, which is there to study the atmosphere, that cost 5 years ago was $125,000. Now it's reduced to 1/5 of it. Now it's going to be $25,000. So that opens a lot of space for more people to get into space. Okay, so what is Artemis project? Artemis project is basically human settlement on space. How it will be done? It's like if you want to move to a new city, the first time you want to go there, see what's happening, how the city is like, you like the weather or not. So this is what we did in 1970s. Now they did it in Artemis 1 project again in 2020. They circled around it. So Artemis is basically SLS rockets. These are space launch systems, Orion spacecraft, and Gateway Lunar Station. I'll explain all these, to you briefly. So these are the stages of Artemis projects. This is how it's going to be launched. Now, imagine a rocket. So I think all of you would have gone to the Statue of Liberty. A rocket is usually double the size. So imagine that rocket going with 6G speed into the sky, consuming 5,500 kilogram of fuel per second. 5,500 kilogram, that is worth maybe 2 or 3 of SUVs put together. That's how it is consuming per second. In the first 150 seconds, the booster stages, which carry roughly 1.5 million pound, weight of fuel, in the first 150 seconds it's gone. So the calculation, the materials, the risk involved needs a lot of computation going inside it. There's a lot of risk involved, a lot of mass involved. Plus now with reusable rockets, before what used to happen, the rockets would just go out in the atmosphere, they will land in the sea, nobody would care, nobody should get hurt, that's all. Now SpaceX is retrieving these rockets, the booster stage is called Super Heavy and Falcon 9. So the booster stage is like a pet puppy. It's just getting back into the booster, they call it chopsticks. They are huge mechanical arms from which the rocket has launched. So 150 feet or maybe 50 meters plus tall structure flying out in the sky with Earth's gravitational pull, being directed with fins and thrusters back into the same spot where you launched it from. That's a whole lot of AI. That's a whole lot of calculations. So those guys now need heat shields. What is a heat shield? Heat shield is something which will protect your rocket from being burned, because now we are using reusable rockets. We are having reusable rockets. So we need certain tiles of ceramics which add weight to the rocket. So earlier, whatever weight we reduced by using 3D printing and AI is getting added up again. So now new calculations are coming. And if we lose a single tile, now what happens when the rocket goes up? It's cryogenic fuel inside, minus 100 degrees, all cryogenic fuel. The steel structure is shrinking, and the tiles which are attached to the steel structure are getting compressed, and they have a chance of getting broken because the ceramics is brittle. When it's coming back, it's expanding, and when it's coming back at 1700 degrees C. So if you miss a single tile, the hot plasma will go inside and fry everything, and if there's any fuel left, there's a possibility of an explosion. So yeah, so this is again long, we can go into this longer, but we'll go further than longer at this moment. Okay, so what is the thrust produced? The thrust of each booster is equivalent to Boeing 747 at takeoff. 14 Boeing 747s taking off at one time is the amount of thrust produced by one booster. There are 4 of them. Okay. So there are 3 ways to travel to the moon. One is a direct shot. You have a lot of fuel, you have a very heavy rocket, and now 95% of the rocket weight at the launch is basically fuel. Only 5% is what is there, which is called the rocket. Rest is fuel, and whatever is the payload which has to be delivered is sometime 100, 200, 300, 500 kilograms out of a rocket which is probably weighing 500 tons. So the whole job is to put the satellite in a certain orbit. Okay, so this is Gateway Lunar, which is basically going to be, so there's something called International Space Station, which is circulating around the planet 400 kilometers, 450 kilometers above the sky. Satellites and shuttles can go dock, and this space shuttle has to be continuously manned. It's manual, people have to stay there. The next space shuttle is going to be rotating around the moon, which is called the Lunar Gateway. Because people don't want to come back to Earth to refuel, to pick up supplies, to pick up radiation levels and take everything. So Artemis project is all about working in the cislunar space, which is moon and beyond. And this is also called the gateway to Mars. Now there is something on Mars and Moon. It's called regolith, which is the soil of the planet. So you can see that there are certain payloads: Lister, Luger, Lexi, and Lunar Magnetic Sounder. Telluric. Sorry. You can see technology demonstrations. One of that is electrodynamic dust shield, because there's a lot of dust on lunar surface, and when you're launching so many of sensors, cameras, everything, you don't want it to be destroyed. So you want to know what kind of material, and this information you have to send it something to the moon. So you should have some feedback from the previous rovers that okay, we sent this, out of these 5 lenses, maybe this lens gathered more dust, so let's see which material this was. So all these kind of small experiments, they cost millions. And why are we investing in space? Because the next economy, right now we use GPS. So GPS was, it was a work of NASA. NASA needed GPS, that's why we use GPS. So you can see how many apps run on GPS. Your Uber delivery won't come if you don't have GPS. That's how it has reached within our lives. Okay, so yeah, there are 3 ways of traveling to the moon. One is direct transfer method, the other one is ballistic lunar method. You can directly have a very powerful rocket go straight to the moon in 3 days, or you can have something which reaches the Earth escape velocity, then go round and round Earth, then get pulled up by moon's gravitational surface. It's a longer process, requires many more orbital maneuvers, complex, but very economical. This is how Chandrayaan went to moon in 40 days. Wherever the first rocket went in 3 days, that was the 1970s. So this is how the difference is. It's a lot of difference. Okay, SpaceX. So there's a lot happening in space which we don't know. We have asteroids coming and we want to mine the asteroids. Some asteroids are made of gold, some are made of some other precious material. It was not possible because for 70, 60 years we've been launching rockets and these rockets are just getting dumped into the sea, they are not usable. Now with SpaceX has brought down the cost of space venturing by a fraction, and it continues to do that. Again, it's using a lot of AI and 3D printing, which we'll see later. So, full reusability, which is right now the booster stage is usable, the nose cone is usable, the first stage is still not recoverable. But on 16th January, they recovered the first Raptor engine. A Raptor engine, one of 33 engines they could recover. The booster they could catch back in the chopsticks. The Raptor, they are able to recover and reuse it, which is a great success in terms of what space is. So if SpaceX thinks it's great, it must be great. I assume so. Okay. So now all this is being driven by AI optimized design and 3D printed components. What is a very amazing discovery also is restarting of Raptor engines in space. So if, for example, you have a cold start with your car here in New York or in California, if you have a cold start in space, you are stuck. So if you are able to reignite your engine, it's a big thing. So this is what they achieved in last month. Okay, this is what you can do with 3D printing. A lot of parts have a lot of welding, a lot of joints. Their design optimization takes a lot of time because you are hosting different kind of cameras, sensors, radars, so many things. So you need to be, if one thing changes here, for example, if 5 people are sitting here and we suddenly want to introduce some big, maybe projector, maybe laptop, so all 5 have to adjust. So the seating arrangement will change. In the same way, when we bring something on space, everything else, the design changes. So you need to reiterate the design very quickly. This is what AI helps you to do. So whatever could be done in months before is now being done in minutes. Leap 71 engine is one example, and you can see that the weight reduction. So there is something called the honeycomb design. Honeycomb design is one of the most efficient. It's very natural. It's coming from the bees. Structural integrity is very good. So using that, which side of the component is taking maximum load under what kind of acceleration service, impact, also tells you how to optimize your design. Sometimes you can be putting off extra material in a certain space, you can remove it. And that way you can achieve a 2/3 reduction in weight. Okay, so this is how rover lands on Mars. It's very interesting. Okay, so Mars, when you launch a shuttle from Earth, it takes 7 months to touch atmosphere of Mars. Traveling at a speed of 40,000 kilometers per hour, it takes 7 minutes. Now what happens when the rover touches the atmosphere? Within 20 minutes, it reaches the ground. So when it's entering at a speed of 16,000 kilometers per hour. So it's it's entering really fast. The heat shield below gets a temperature of 1600 degrees C. In that time, the radar is not active because the cameras and sensors which will direct the rover are just below the heat shield. They need to be protected. And at this point, any signal which is sent from Earth takes 11 minutes to reach Mars. So this is how Mars and Moon are different. If you are on Moon, somebody calls you, you can receive it in 1.2 seconds, you can hear the voice or any signal. If you send it to Mars, it's heard in 11 minutes. So within 20 minutes when the rover is landing, these are called 7 minutes of terror, in which the entry, descent and landing of the rover happens. So it shows that where the parachute will open, it's coming from 16,000 to 1500 kilometers per hour is reached because of the heat shield entering the atmosphere and creating resistance. From 1500 kilometers, it will reach to around 2 to 300 kilometers because of deployment of the parachute, which is taking a force of 9G equivalent, which is very, 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 very strong. And then the retro rockets will be engaged, which hold the rover 20 meters above the ground, and it's let down by something which is called sky crane maneuver, where it's let down by the ropes so that the dust of the rocket fumes doesn't, the rocket fume exhaust, not the dust, doesn't throw up the dust and doesn't destroy the rover, which is a very non-expensive $2.7 billion and 80 years of research by thousands of people, bright people like you. So, the calculation that goes into it is what is exciting. And how do you handle this kind of calculation? AI. So AI can get this done, and this whole thing is actually driven by AI. Before that, it would not have been possible because this is totally autonomous operation. Any command sent from Earth won't reach it before. Okay, so now this the Mars landing happens in a place called Zero crater. Zero crater is a 4 mile by 4 mile patch. So you're sending something from 150 million miles away to land in a spot which is 4 mile by 4 mile within 7 minutes with autonomy to check and change. The location and orientation is where the magic lies. Okay, so this is what I just mentioned. Okay, this is the set of instruments which is there. So once the rover lands coming at 40,000, 16,000, it moves on the surface of Mars at 100 meters per hour. It takes its own time. It has done all the running around. Okay, so this is a very interesting set of instruments which are there. MEDA, Pixel, Sherlock, Rimfax, Moxie. Moxie converts 96% of Mars atmosphere is carbon dioxide, so it can convert carbon dioxide to oxygen, which is good for human habitation, as well as if you want to launch your rocket from Mars, you should have oxidizer. So that's what it can do. It uses a catalyst. Sherlock is there is something called there is something which is missing here. It's called space cam, which is basically a laser which heats the rocks, and then the characteristics of that rocks, they can come out, so you can figure out that what is the biosignature in that rock. Was there life? Because the reason they are here is because there was a big lake in the Zero crater long ago. And what is the most amazing? And they're also taking samples from Mars surface. So they have a drill. The drill will take a capsule. The samples will be there in the Perseverance rover. Now, who's going to bring it back? They're going to send another, rover back to Mars. But in this time, they also sent a helicopter called Ingenuity, which is the first flying object out of, Earth on any other planet, which did a very successful 73 flights, mapping 2 hours of flight time against the design of 5 flights only. So now they are changing the whole thing. The whole project is changing because now they are going to use helicopters so nothing has to land now. It will just be sent via helicopter to a little height where it will be taken off by the shuttle. So the whole challenge of landing rovers will be changed. That's going to save hundreds of millions of dollars. This is how Perseverance looks. This is something very exciting. This patch, which looks like, if somebody has a farming background, it looks like a tractor, trail. So this is called ripple sediments, which are created if there is water in the surface. then the ripples or the waves in the lake creates this kind of sediment, and this is what has excited scientists a lot. This is probably why they have spent so much of money trying to find these kind of signatures. 3D printing of structures, habitable structures on moon. A company called Icon is doing it. This is called Lunar Surface Innovation Initiative. NASA is spending a lot of money because they want to send material, make it breathable. So MOXIE is there, it can create oxygen. You can see there are houses there. Then we have this is explanation of Crew Dragon. It's a very, very beautiful, amazing product by SpaceX. You can see that earlier there used to be solar panels on both sides. That was Crew Dragon 1. Crew Dragon 2, they have solar panels on one side. They have heat radiation shield on the other side. So this area is called trunk. This is called nose cone. Nose cone is pressurized, habitable, and it has everything. The stocks and everything is there. So when this comes back after docking, the nose cone is retained again. It's reusable. The trunk gets lost. 350,000 sensors on International Space Station. That's a lot of data, a lot of computation, and a lot of mission planning for the next mission. What will happen, what can go wrong, that's the amount of data that is needed to be dealt with. Around 1.5 million lines of code were written for making the International Space Station, which is again a 25-year-old machine. So now the function would be very different. This is what is now called the continuous volume generator, which is basically a circular architecture, because the previous space stations will feel confined. Here you can just go around. This is a tile, and this machine actually makes tiles from the asteroid raw material, or this material could also be sent. International Space Station is 500,000 kilogram. It was constructed by sending material in 42 space flights. Each space flight could cost between 50 to 200 million dollars. So this is the amount of money which we can save if we invest in space machines. So if you see a startup which is investing in space machines, 5 years down it will be worth a lot of money. You can reach out to me in case you want to know which startups are going to make money, because they need to be part of this value chain somewhere. This is space debris. Space debris. You can see that these dotted are pieces of satellites which have been destroyed. And the next satellite, how much it can get hit, what is the chance of that, is again a case study for a lot of AI companies. Leo Labs is based on that. This is the 1960 we were here in terms of space debris, and now we are there and we are rising. Okay, so thank you. This is Duke Vashisht. I work on space economy, and I really appreciate your time. Okay, thank you. If 10 people get curious about this, I'll consider it a win, because there has to be a reason for delivering a talk. And do you have a time for a question? I think somebody.
We'll have just one question.
Yeah, sir.
So basically, I'm very curious about the telecommunication space because I think satellite communication should grow instead of cellular tower, because in Bay Area sometimes you don't even get good cellular coverage. So I think in general it has to go because you see a lot of internet is based on the CDMA technology almost in all parts of the world. So why isn't that growing?
So two companies, AST, there's something called AST somewhere in the slides, and SpaceX, they've managed to connect satellite to cellular phones directly. So now the big satellites which were launched by companies like Intelsat, Eutelsat, SES, which are in the geostationary space, geosynchronous orbit, which is 36,000 kilometers above the sea, above the Earth, they are going to go out of business, because now is the time for low Earth orbit constellations. So it's going to change the whole scenario. Now, what is the main point is, you as a tech person, do you want to be a consumer subscriber, or do you want to be a part of that whole, moving ecosystem? Is my question to you?
Yeah, I think it would be beneficial in rural India, where you don't have that much of communication sometimes, and when you're going through a different geography. It's not only in India but everywhere else. So I'm just trying to say that telecommunication can be the first easiest medium to leverage low orbit satellites.
Sir, it is actually starting to happen now.
Yeah.
I think yes, it's being heard, but given technology is like a game of where you stack things on top of each other. So sometimes things have to be stacked to a little point where it can be delivered.
Inflection.
I don't know what is that game called where you put blocks on top of each other. So inflection point is when two curves are changing. Jenga. Yeah. So it's a tech Jenga when the right moment of investing in technology and getting the right returns out of it, which is which can justify the ROI, will happen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thank you.
Nice.